Hello, my little New Year babies. This is Movies, Music, and Moods. I'm Noey, and this is a podcast journal for me to talk about what I think is magic and mystifying and memeable about the media I consume. So let's talk. So I'm really excited for this week. I kind of have a jumble of stuff to talk about. I know I always say at the opening, this is a podcast journal, because I just want to talk about what I'm into at the time. I want to talk about Sasami's album from last year, Squeeze, and I want to talk about an EP that I recently got into. Thank you, Spotify, for recommending it, as well as the movie Mermaids. I'm not sure why I just keep reviewing movies from the same, 2-3 year time period, because this one is also from 1990, just like Home Alone. I'm just trying to catch up, okay? I'm kind of just trying to catch up on all these movies that I wanted to see, 10 years ago, and just didn't feel up to watching. And I love Moonstruck, so I felt, Cher's an icon, let's get into it. I've actually mentioned her before. Not a big fan of her ABBA covers, but I think I can forgive her for that. So first things first, Sasami Ashworth released Squeeze last year. Everything's already been released about this album. Interviews have been done, reviews are out, but at the time, I couldn't get into it quite as much as I can now. I just think it's resonating with me at the moment. What I really like and respect is the intention behind the album. The album info on Spotify itself states, with Squeeze, Sasami hopes that listeners will identify with this new sinister, that's one of my favorite ways to describe music, with this new sinister, intense sound and use it as a soundtrack for processing their anger, frustration, desperation, and more violent, aggressive emotions. Her ultimate desire is for marginalized folks, including femmes, BIPOC, and queer people, to listen to Squeeze and find catharsis from the oppression and violence that they experience. So the album was very much a response to COVID-19 and everything else going on during the pandemic. I noticed at the time, in contrast to this album, that a lot of my favorite artists were releasing these soft, acoustic-y albums. And I'm not completely, I don't completely have a problem with the idea of a soft acoustic album, but I needed a better distraction than that, quite frankly. And I was angry too. I was angry and I was scared and depressed and paranoid and all of those things. And I can completely understand how feeling a lot of those emotions would create an album like this. In the Wikipedia article for this album, Sasami stated that she wanted to appropriate music styles that were typically associated with white men and kind of just get in there and mess it up. And personally, I think she delivered. It's awesome to hear her viewpoint. And yeah, a lot of people mention that the album skips around genres a lot. That's kind of what I prefer. I'm going to mention the band of Montreal about 20 million times this episode. If that's not something that you think you can handle today, go ahead and turn this off. I've mentioned of Montreal before too. It's because they're one of my favorite bands ever. They're kind of in a phase right now that isn't my favorite, but I have hope because I've been following of Montreal since I was in college. A friend back then got me into them, and I really thank him for that because they've made such a difference in my creative life. They got me through college. They got me through my young adulthood. My first big full-time job. I remember driving in the snow, listening to Lousy with Sylvie and Briar, and just absorbing all of Kevin Barnes' emotions and frustrations. And in my own way, even though I have a completely different life to Kevin, understanding them completely. Kevin is an artist. So, with all of that being said, I will be mentioning of Montreal a lot because I think a lot of the songs on the two albums, well, an album and an EP that I want to talk about, evoke a lot of the styles of Montreal. Like I was saying, when Squeeze first came out, I couldn't really get into it. I think you have to wait for when the mood is right. And currently, at the time I'm recording this, it's before the new year. I've really, really been pondering the new year a lot. I kind of have goals, like a direction for the year already set out. Not resolutions necessarily, because I have kind of my own relationship to personal goals that I'm just trying to figure out. I think a lot of us set goals for ourselves and then kind of just beat ourselves up about it. But around the new year, I'm always in the mood to listen to really energetic music. And this album, for the most part, fits the bill. I was listening to a more folksy sort of album, and I thought I was going to talk about it this episode, and I didn't end up getting into it. I'm glad I'm revisiting Squeeze. Sasami did an incredible amount of work collaborating with other artists. I saw Kyle Thomas from King Tuff mentioned. Ty Segall actually produced a lot of the songs. I saw one of the songs features Mitski as well. The single that really got me was Make It Right. That one I'm going to talk about it later, but that one just scratches my brain for sure. I'm sure a lot of people were maybe off-put by the imagery of the album at first. So Sasami references a Japanese yokai called a Nure Ana quite a few times. In the cover, she becomes that yokai. And there are these awesome animations for every song, if you listen on Spotify and on the YouTube videos of these pulsating, bug-like, armored demon creatures. They're so cool and also unsettling. Genres aren't my favorite thing to try to figure out and pick apart and piece together, but Sasami got into a lot of heavy metal and nu metal and industrial and grunge, kind of 90s to new millennium style music here on this album. And just from reading a lot about the album online, I see people either praising it or panning it completely. I'm not interested in doing either of those things today. I really just want to talk about it. The first track, Skin a Rat, I really didn't think I would ever genuinely like, but with more and more listenings, I just feel like it's the perfect way to kick off the album to set the tone. It's fast and heavy and angry and discordant. I absolutely love the repeated line of hell fucked economy, crisis identity. Does any of that sound familiar to you? And again, you kind of understand this as a response to COVID and the general state of things at that time. It's definitely a foray from Sasami into metal. I love when the song pauses and it just kind of breaks down. Again, it's not my absolute favorite, but it's appropriate. The second song is one of my favorites. It's more of a rock ballad. It's immediately a more gentle and sensitive song as a juxtaposition to Skin a Rat. It's the story of a breakup. I think the video is so great with all the fog. It looks kind of low budget. I like music videos like that. I love the demons and the monsters approaching. I love the faces in the amp. Sasami's vocals here are really beautiful. This is something that you would expect from her had you listened to her last album. Also, shout out to her Christmas album. I really liked that one. Talk about sinister Christmas music. I want more sinister Christmas music. I'm pounding my fist on the table here. That's what I'm asking everyone for. I love the line in this one, "You haunt me like a song I can't escape." I think the cherry on top is that emotional guitar lead. Kind of just breaks your heart a little bit. Say It is the song that is getting stuck in my head. That's the next track. I think this one is just asking for dance aerobics. I can see Pony Sweat using this in one of their monthly mixtapes if they haven't already. I think the creepy pitched voice is great. Reminds me a lot of, take a guess, of Montreal. The song is busy. It's unsettling. It has that industrial feel with like the sound of metal falling down stairs or something. It just kind of gives me the chills. I like the buzzes. I like that engine feeling. It sounds painful and definitely reminds me a bit of a fever dream. Call Me Home was the first track where I really wanted to read what inspired the song. This one is definitely more like what Sasami has put out in the past. It's bittersweet. She's telling a person, I'll always be here, you're not alone. I can represent home for you. And it's comforting in that way. I saw on Genius, when I was looking at the lyrics, that Sasami wrote this to all those restless people out there who need to feel at any given time an extreme of emotions. It's always interesting to me hearing musicians reference, quote, settling down and getting a real job and a fake smile, and you're thinking, okay, is she talking about like the corporate life? Again, it's interesting to me because at least in America, we're really just trying to survive. If you can claw your way up to work that supports you and pays for your living and at least some happiness, I think you've been really lucky there. And so lyrics like that always feel a bit condescending to me. But I don't want to assume the worst from Dear Sasami, so apologies there. The next track is Need It to Work. This one is really about those obsessive thoughts about a relationship. Person not totally grounded. This person is completely dysregulated. And of course, I've never been obsessed or felt any desperation or distress, so I can't really identify. But this one is a great one. I think it continues to set that tone of anger and this, wild sort of animal feeling. And for me, themes of suffering, I want to mention those animations again. A lot of the creatures look like they are suffering. I don't know, to me, I just get that feeling. And they're maybe just fighting back out of self-preservation or necessity. Am I reading too much into this? Oh well. The next song, Tried to Understand. It's not heavy, it's lighter. It's a little bit country, folks. It's a little bit folk. It's good, but it's not the strongest song to me. It's definitely a really pretty arrangement. For some reason, it reminds me kind of the Kinks, but not my favorite Kinks songs. Make It Right, that's the one I've listened to the most, and I'm going to keep listening to it. It's fast, I love the guitar. This one's probably the most glam rock song, and glam rock, as we know, is my shit. I think the drums really make it. I also saw the Megadeth drummer mentioned as having worked on this album. Again, sounds of that crashing metal, things falling. You dropped a wrench in your garage. Probably something creepier than that. The next song on the album is Sorry Entertainer, and it is a cover. This song is a cover of a Daniel Johnston song. I would not have listened to this song if not for Sasami doing a cover of it. I saw she mentioned it was the big budget movie version of the song. And the video is really interesting. Patty Harrison is in it. She's hysterical. It's only a little bit bloody. Only a little bit. I love the repeated use of mouse traps as a prank. That's gotta really hurt, right? It was funny seeing the young kid holding up 2 mouse traps after he goes to get a single hot dog out of the microwave. Pretty fun. Sasami has a sense of humor. I appreciate it. Squeeze is the next song. I love this one. This one really ties that heavy metal, raging feeling together. So this one is featuring an artist called No Home. I'm definitely going to check them out. And I like to imagine, because I like stories. And you know what? I like concept albums, but I like to think of this as the thoughts going through the mind of the Noey. I really appreciate that Sasami is providing us with some cool yokai content. And to continue on with the Noey or Wet Woman yokai theme here, the second to last song is called Feminine Water Turmoil. First of all, I've talked about a song that makes me appreciate being a woman. No phrase makes me appreciate being a woman as much as Feminine Water Turmoil. Incredible. And it's really beautiful. It's this small classical piece, and it morphs into the final song, which is not a love song. I love the animation for this one in Spotify. The animations before it were, I said painful and suffering and unsettling, but this one was more beautiful. It's this luminous plant person. I think it's the perfect end to the album. Yet again, like a lot of Sasami's work, it's earnest and vulnerable, but it is also, I think, telling kind of the story of a one-sided relationship. I think this is the one that features Mitski. So if you just haven't gotten around to listening to Squeeze, please give it a try. It's worth listening to. You can't get bored. The genres are shifting so much that it's kind of like ordering every appetizer at the restaurant so you can have just a little bit of everything. So the EP I want to talk about this week is by an artist who goes by Stars in Coma. And Stars in Coma is a Swedish songwriter and producer, Andre Brorson. The new EP is called Reality Denier, and there are 5 songs. And just by judging Spotify, it looks like Stars in Coma is prolific. I see a lot of releases, which is exciting. The cover is pixel art. It's like this red and orange and yellow sunset. and the sun setting looks like a record with little music notes around it. There's a character in the foreground watching. The first song is called Atomize Us. It's the most upbeat song, definitely my favorite currently. It's really glam and dramatic. It has that modern futuristic feel to it, like 80s synth. It's really fuzzy and funky. I love the bass. You'll hear these little buzzwords, these like technology and modern social media buzzwords, and those are all over this EP. In this one, he mentions an endless blue screen. Those nods to technology are interesting. I like the mention of hypercapitalism. The title song, Reality Denier, really reminded me a lot of Montreal. I loved that line, until you lose all your fun. And when it comes to social media, I've completely lost all the fun there. I'm taking it back. I definitely get a theme of like a dystopian future with this one. And are we in the dystopian future, or do we need to make one up to talk about it? The next song, Doom Scrollers Incorporated. I like imagining Doom Scrollers as a group. The line, getting in touch is not our game anymore. I get it. It's like, what's the point trying to keep in touch with people on social media when you're just being inundated with ads and you never get the actual feeling that you've made a connection with a person? As the song goes on, I really love the fading vocals behind the synth. There's a soft acoustic guitar. It's really sweet and it's kind of sad. That line, would you start again? When I heard that, I was like, would I start again? Would I set up accounts again? Like, would I still create a MySpace account or a Facebook account? I probably would. And then I'd delete them. The next song on the EP, Stars on the Map, again, is very of Montreal. It reminds me a lot of the song Aries Equals Good Trash from the I Feel Safe With You Trash album. And it's a romantic song, even though the lyrics mention the earth being covered in dried lava. Because I think you can do both. Get you a man who can do both. I do think the part where he's singing I'm running from the world doesn't work all that well. But if you don't listen to that part, then you don't miss that really cool synth solo at the end, so make sure you do that. The last song is called Departure, and the song feels like it's really building towards something. That's how I felt listening to it. The lyrics do feel a bit disjointed at times, but they definitely still work. This is definitely one that stands out to me. And that's it for Reality Denier. Definitely going to keep following Stars in Coma. That was a nice find for me. I have been hungrily searching for new stuff to listen to. It's movie time, and like I said, this episode we are going to talk about Mermaids from the year 1990. I don't know what my deal is, but I love movies from around this time. I was really excited to see this one. I had absolutely no expectations, no idea what it was about, didn't even know the cast until I looked at the cover and saw that Bob Hoskins is part of the cast. And me and Bob Hoskins are funny because the way I know him is from two very strange sources. One, Spice World. Does anyone remember that scene? And also that episode of Frasier where he is dating a gym teacher, but he can't be cool about it because she reminds him of his gym teacher who was really mean to him. And the gym teacher was played by Bob Hoskins. As of yet, I've not actually seen Bob Hoskins use his actual accent. So the movie starts out with this, like, ragtime song that won't end. I was going to turn it off after a while because I was kind of sick of hearing it. But I'm glad I got past that first scene. The movie is based on a novel by Patty Dan, and it definitely feels like a book. I love movies based on books. The plots sometimes, the directions they go in, just aren't usually predictable. Some overall thoughts that I had, first of all, Cher is so beautiful that it's painful. The movie has so many quotables. I feel like every 5 minutes you have 2 lines that you could quote the rest of your life. Some predictions we had watching the movie, my husband Tim thought that Bob Hoskins was going to die. I definitely thought someone was going to die, like a My Girl. And, well, we'll see. We'll be talking about that for certain. I love the age difference between Winona Ryder's character and Christina Ricci's character. It reminds me a lot of me and my little sister, with some big differences. I love how kid-like the kids in the movie are. I like that Christina Ricci is this really confident, energetic little girl. But I love that Winona Ryder is just this dorky, unfashionable teenager. She's wearing those awful boots the whole movie. I guess I just kept hoping she'd get a new pair of shoes. I'm not sure that she ever got a new pair of shoes. Oh my gosh, I wasn't paying attention to that at the end of the movie. I need to go back and see that. So what did I find magic? What did I find magical about the movie? I really liked the finger foods, first of all. I get it. I like foods that I don't have to cook, that I don't have to bake, foods that I can just assemble. And she takes it even farther than I do, because sometimes I'll go for a tuna. I'll go for a pasta salad. I don't eat as many marshmallows. And I was definitely worried those kids had a pretty bad nutritional deficiency through most of the movie. So obviously, I was very happy to see Bob Hoskins made them like a turkey or a chicken. I think the whole cast is magic. I love the inclusion of the nuns and the convent. I love the nuns playing horseshoes and that tunnel made out of trees that Winona has to walk through to get there. The whole setting of Massachusetts with the castle-like churches. I adored Cher's entire wardrobe. I loved all of the contrast. I immediately loved Bob Hoskins' character, even if he does do that eyes wide opening thing. He opens his eyes really wide all the time. I guess if you're just a Bob Hoskins fan, you get used to that kind of stuff. But I was immediately like, oh my god, I ship him and Cher. Please get them together. And they did. Winona Ryder's horny teenager thoughts reminded me a lot of Tina Belcher. She's like the pre-Tina. She's the proto-Tina. I love the scene of each of the ladies pinching their cheeks for some color in the car mirror. When Winona's character is trying to make some serious, like, bologna sandwiches for Joe, the caretaker, and then her mom Cher cannot help but press those little star cookie cutters onto the sandwiches. Like, Winona should have just said, oh, I individually bit each one of those sandwiches into a star shape. Do you like that? But I also liked it because it was like, she's a child. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Like, don't think I'm forgetting about that. I'm just saying that scene with the cookie cutter sandwich was magical, okay? When Joe's driving and he's talking about his speedometer, Tim told me an anecdote that his friend had a broken speedometer for years, and he just went with the flow of traffic. Isn't that beautiful? I could never do it. But honestly, I've had some pretty shitty cars, so maybe I could. Bob Hoskins' character, when he's saying he likes to know everyone's business, thank you for your honesty. I kind of do too. And I'm going to start being more upfront about it. I think that's a good way to weed people out. Because if you're not ready for me to ask questions, I don't think this is going to work. I usually don't like movies with narration, because Winona Ryder is narrating this movie, because it's just like, we're going to tell you and not show you. But the narration is definitely a key here. You absolutely need to hear her, like, traumatized, unhinged teenager thoughts. That scene where Christina Ricci guzzles all that wine behind Winona Ryder's back. My cat Maple had hiccups at the exact same time, which was so cute. Oh, wait a minute. Back to Cher's wardrobe. That white swing coat that she wears with, like, the black stovepipe pants. Oh my gosh, be still my heart. Surprisingly, to me, the movie did have a happy ending. I loved the shot of Bob Hoskins stepping out in the wingtip shoes. And him at the museum with Lou Gehrig's glove was adorable. Absolutely adorable. I almost shed a small tear. So that's what I thought was magic. But let's get to what I felt was mystifying, because I kind of have a lot to talk about here. 15 and 26. 15 and 26. What do you think those numbers correspond to? There is, so 15 and 26. 26 minus 15 is 11. That represents 11 years difference between Winona Ryder, a child, and Joe the caretaker, a 26-year-old adult. And I want to say, Cher's kind of pushing her towards him in the first place. I mean, Winona Ryder completely, her character's name is Charlotte, by the way, I'm just going to call her Winona Ryder. She's completely in love with him right away. It's set up in the movie that she's aware that she falls in love too easily, so this is just a snapshot of one big love, like one very defining one that kind of, I think, changes her. But 15 and 26. He's not old enough to be her father, but he is old enough to be a father, right? And like I said, Cher was kind of pushing her towards him like, you know you can have a boyfriend now, huh? Okay. What made you say that, Also, in real life, they were 11 years apart. She was 19 and he was 30. So we're not imagining how different in, like, visual maturity they actually were. Creeped me out a lot. I know that 1963 was a much different time, but the movie came out in 1990, so I'm sure a lot of people were, a little creeped by that at the time. And obviously, it doesn't work out between them. I think we're supposed to understand that it's an inappropriate match that's not going to work out. And I'm not saying 11 years difference can't happen for two consenting adults, but it shouldn't happen with a 15-year-old. Anyway, I'm going to relax. Here's some other things I thought were mystifying. That gynecologist didn't even ask, okay, before he went in. That seems like harassment to me. Also, he was able to tell she was a virgin. I have my thoughts about that. Maybe it was just how she reacted, but it is not possible to tell that information from a gynecological exam. I would like to enter that for your consideration. That really cute scene where the girls and Bob Hoskins paint the room, they painted over the windows. Why did they do that? It went from like a cute, sweet room to just kind of a prison room at that point for me. That room would be a jail. Also, I like that Cher has this big problem with him getting close to her kids when it's like, okay, you immediately introduced him to your kids. Most single parents who are dating don't do that. And a lot of times it's out of caution, like for protecting their children against a man that they don't know. But don't be mad at him when you were like acting like he was their dad right away. And obviously we're supposed to think she's being childish and immature at that point. This movie features that old trope, losing your virginity while your little sister drowns. Thankfully, she didn't actually drown, but it sounds like she has neurological damage after that. That's a bummer. I wonder if the book gets into that a lot. I was almost positive she was going to die, because at that point I'm thinking, what kind of movie is this going to be? I don't know. I didn't have any expectations. And this is another Winona Ryder movie that ends with dancing to a song. And that Pretty Ugly Woman song, that is a catchy-ass song, but those lyrics, God, it's like a Reddit post. So that's what I felt was mystifying. What did I think was memeable? Right off the bat, Charlotte, we're Jewish. I love Charlotte's special interests. I had and still do have so many special interests dating back to my adolescence. Also the line, all Charlotte's ages are difficult. I get it. Even though Cher said some really mean stuff to her kid. I know she was a young mother, but gosh. Christina Ricci's character walking around in the pumpkin head, that scene wasn't needed, but I'm so glad it was there. Also, memeable on a personal level to me, Bob Hoskins' hospital fit is so my dad. I was like, oh my god, he needs to copy this look. So that's Mermaids. I'm trying to think if I'd want to watch it again. I think I do, because I think I'm going to pick up more on the second or third rewatch. I can totally see this movie being someone's favorite childhood classic, even though there are a lot of references to sex throughout it. But I think we all had favorite movies as a kid, though, that were kind of questionable, where we didn't really get all the jokes. This is a reference to Look Who's Talking, of course. And I completely forgot to mention, but I watched this because I read a list, and I think it was Good Housekeeping, of the best New Year's movies. I wouldn't exactly call this a New Year's movie, except that Cher wears the famous mermaid costume to a New Year's party. But the party was fairly disappointing and sad, and it really wasn't the focal point of the movie. I like the callback to Mermaids all the time, too, where they're always taking baths, and Christina Ricci is a swimmer, and their dad was a swimmer. It's actually very relevant to my life, for reasons that I'm just now realizing now, actually. I get why my mom and sister liked this movie. But as far as a New Year's movie, I would count Ghostbusters 2 more as a New Year's movie. The two movies people are always comparing, Mermaids and Ghostbusters 2. It's time for the mood segment of Movies, Music, and Moods. How am I feeling? Well, I'm on a little vacation right now. I'm on my holiday vacation. So my mood is pretty good. I'm getting to sleep too late, and I'm sleeping in until 10, but I imagine I'll get that cleaned up in the next couple of days. My head's just kind of brimming with creative ideas right now, and movies and songs and TV shows and projects I want to work on. I am disappointed in myself for completely forgetting about planning a Christmas card this year. Some of my favorite traditions, well, I've done it at least 2 or 3 times, is to actually paint a Christmas card and get it sent out to everyone, like get a postcard of it printed and sent out to everyone. I wish I'd done a bit better planning this year. Oh well, if I'm lucky, hey, if I'm lucky, there's always next year, right? So my mood is upbeat. I'm feeling good. Not a whole lot to complain about. In the words of Joe Walsh, I can't complain, but sometimes I still do. We've come to the end of this episode of Movies, Music, and Moods. For everyone who has listened this far, I just want to thank you. I'm so appreciative to you. I hope that you have a wonderful New Year's Eve and a wonderful New Year's Day. And you know what? Go ahead and have yourself a wonderful new year as well. We'll definitely be talking throughout the new year. Please take care of yourself as best as you can, and we'll talk soon.